There are a number of myths about aging, but I can tell you that now is the very best time in history to be getting old. We're living longer and healthier than ever before. We're living more productively into our later years. There are a number of reasons for this, but a lot of it is thanks to the ingenious people in medical research who have figured out how to keep us alive not just longer, but better and healthier. Almost every disease that killed people 100 years ago has been eradicated. Think about that. Now we have new diseases, of course, that can kill us because we're living long enough to get them, like cancer and Alzheimer's. But the good news is that there's enormous progress being made in both fronts. I'd like to begin by exploding a couple of myths about aging. There's a kind of societal narrative that we share about what it means to get older, and it's just not consistent with science. The science has changed a lot in the last 10 or 15 years. In neuroscience in particular, we've learned a whole lot about the aging brain, and most of that hasn't trickled down to the average reader. One of the myths is that memory failure is inevitable. Now, it's true, there are some older adults who experience memory difficulties. In fact, that is one of the behavioral markers of Alzheimer's. It's what causes people to go to the doctor. But Alzheimer's is rarer than you think, and memory impairment is not a given. If you look at older adults in the aggregate, many older adults will have very little or no memory impairment all through their 80s and 90s. It's hard to believe, isn't it? A lot of misdiagnosed cases of Alzheimer's based on a patient, an individual presenting with a memory impairment, aren't actually because the person has a memory impairment, it's because they're sleep deprived. One of the things we've learned as neuroscientists in the last 10 years is the importance of sleep, even among older adults. Another myth, older adults don't need as much sleep. Not at all true. They only get about 5.5 or 6 hours for a whole bunch of other reasons, but they still need 8 or 9 hours like the rest of us. And 1.5 hours to 2 hours of lost sleep in a night on several consecutive nights presents as memory impairment, profound memory impairment. You can have difficulty encoding memories for 2 weeks after just one bad night of sleep after age 70. The older adults are more tolerant, more compassionate, more accepting of individual differences, and as a consequence of all these things, they're better at solving a host of problems, especially those that involve interpersonal problems, political problems, social problems, because they have the compassion and the insight born of decades of experience in interacting with others. So again, a myth is that older adults are less happy. Not true. Older adults are not good at solving problems. Not true. Another domain in which older adults are great at problem solving is anything involving what a cognitive scientist would call pattern matching. This is the ability to extract from disparate experiences commonalities, common threads, to be able to see analogies to this problem from problems that have come by before. If you have to get an X-ray read, you want the 62-year-old or the 70-year-old radiologist, not the 30-year-old. If you need a surgery, ask your surgeon, how many times have you done this operation? If the surgeon says, I've done it 5,000 times, and there are plenty of surgeons who have done surgeries 5,000 times, that's the person you want. If your surgeon says, oh, I've done it, I saw it in school. I saw them do it in school. I was standing right there. Yeah, but how many times have you done it? Well, 5 or 6, but I'm learning. They have to learn on someone, but they don't have to learn on you. And even now with robotic surgery, somebody with shaky hands, which can happen at any age, can still do the surgeries. I would rather have a 72-year-old with shaky hands guiding the robot than the 25-year-old who hasn't done it before. We get better with experience. Part of this societal narrative that I'm weaving here that's faulty is that we look over the course of a lifespan and we see the different developmental stages. And we tend to see them as times of growth along with challenges. So Infants are learning to take in the world, and they're just beginning to learn language. Toddlers are learning to walk. You've got childhood and pre-adolescence and adolescence, and each of these is marked by certain cognitive abilities, certain abilities in thinking that expand. You've got young adulthood, middle age. We see all of them as phases in which something about us gets better. We tend to see old age differently, which again is not consistent with neuroscience. But the societal narrative is at some age, at some point, we just start losing everything. It's all decline. You can argue about what that point is. 70, 80. I'm a child of the 60s, and we used to sing, I hope I die before I get old, and don't trust anybody over 30. So maybe 30 was the point where everything went down, but it doesn't matter. The fact is it doesn't go down, even at 90. Not necessarily. Old age is accompanied by a number of compensatory mechanisms that kick in, a number of strengths and new abilities. And yes, it's full of challenges, aches and pains. The body starts to go, generalized slowing down. But every life phase is accompanied by challenges. I have not yet met somebody who wants to go back to 7th grade. Not a one. It was a terrible time for most people. So that was its challenge. And I know a lot of people who don't want to be starting their first job again. At any age, you can point to something that was unpleasant about it.